When people hear the word Marxism, they usually picture Karl Marx, the bearded philosopher from the 1800s, or they think of dictatorships like the old Soviet Union. But Marxism in its original form wasn't meant to create tyranny. It was meant to explain why societies become unequal and how that inequality leads to conflict. Karl Marx was a German thinker born in 1818. He studied philosophy, economics, and politics during a time of massive change of the Industrial Revolution. He watched as factories made owners rich while workers struggled to survive on almost nothing. He saw that the new capitalist system created enormous wealth for a few and enormous hardship for the many. Marx asked a simple question: if workers produce all the value, why do they get so little of it? His answer became what we now call Marxism, a theory about how economic systems shape politics, culture, and even morality. Marx argued that history moves through stages of struggle between social classes. In ancient times, it was masters and slaves. In feudal Europe, it was lords and peasants. In modern capitalism, it's the struggle between the owners of capital, the bourgeoisie, and the working class, the proletariat. Marx believed that this constant struggle for power and profit would eventually reach a breaking point and that workers would rise up to create a fairer system. But here's what a lot of people misunderstand about Marx. He didn't advocate chaos or violence for its own sake. He thought that social change was inevitable because of the way capitalism works. Because the drive for profit always pushes wages down and power upward until society can't sustain the imbalance anymore. When that happens, people demand reform or revolution. Now, in practice, some governments took Marx's ideas and twisted them into systems of total control. What became known as Marxism, Leninism in the Soviet Union, or Maoism in China, wasn't what Marx originally envisioned. Marx believed in empowering the working class, not replacing one ruling elite with another. He imagined a society where workers themselves controlled production democratically. What turned that vision into dictatorship wasn't the idea of fairness, it was the concentration of power. Once people at the top controlled the economy and the state, they stopped listening to the people below them. That's not Marxism, that's authoritarianism. Understanding Marxism today isn't about joining a movement or taking sides. It's about understanding how power works in society. Even in modern democracies, Marx's analysis still raises important questions. Who really benefits from our labor? Why does the wealth gap keep growing even when the economy grows? Why are working families still struggling while billionaires multiply? You don't have to agree with Marx's solution to see that his diagnosis of inequality still describes much of our world. Marx also warned that when the majority feels exploited and hopeless, democracy itself becomes unstable. People start to look for strong men instead of solutions. That's why understanding economic fairness isn't just an academic exercise, it's a civic one. When everyone has a stake in the system, democracy thrives. When too many are left behind, democracy decays. Some critics say Marxism is about envy or class warfare, but it's really about fairness and balance. It asks whether a society that works for a handful of people can ever truly call itself free. Marx once wrote, "Philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it." What he meant wasn't that everyone should rise up with weapons. It meant that thinking about justice means nothing unless it leads to action. Whether you agree with Marx or not, his work challenges us to look deeper than labels and ask who controls the rules of our economy and who should. Because the story of Marxism isn't just a story about the past. It's a mirror showing us how power, money, and justice continues to shape our future.